It would be good if you would mute.
If you don't want to be recorded, turn your video off. Okay.
It would be good if you would mute yourselves, purely because it prevent any interference if your neighbours call, or it will prevent anyone else. So joyful environmentalism. The quest was a simple one. I'd been reading books about the environment for a couple of years, and as we know, the state of the environment and mankind's we've not been good stewards of the planet, have we? But someone is experiencing some interference. Okay, we've not been good stewards of the planet. So my aim was to look at all the ways that we could be good environmentalists, but also ones that would enrich our lives at the same time. So it was that simple. So unlike many books about the environment that give lengthy explanations of how bad the problem is, I don't bother with the problem at all. I just go straight into the solutions. So the first line of my book is, so what I'm doing is this, and I'm focused completely on solutions. So what I'm going to do with you today is I'm just going to run through about 20.
Sorry.
Okay, somebody.
I'm trying to mute you all. I'm going to mute everybody and then you unmute, Isabel, okay?
Okay.
All right, okay.
Okay, that should be better. Good, you should have less interference in your headphones now. Okay, so that's the quest of the joyful environmentalist. The book itself, it's not fiction, it's all true, but it has stories, and it's a mixture of non-fiction and narrative non-fiction. So it's very readable, it's funny, it's entertaining. But what I want to do with you today is not so much talk about the book as run you through some of the solutions that I explore in the book, so that you've all got practical things that you can do, because we're all looking, are we not, for ways that we can individually help the planet. I'd be grateful if we don't have too much in the chat while I'm talking, because otherwise, if I try to read the chat as well, I won't be able to answer your questions whilst I'm talking. So the first thing that I look at because I'm looking all the time at changes that we can make as individuals that make an impact to the whole. So the first thing I look at is where we bank. Like you, I'm sure I've been with the same bank. Well, I've been with the same bank almost all my life. We tend to be very loyal to our bank accounts. But because I was looking at every aspect of my life from the environmental point of view, I wrote a letter to my high street bank asking them if they could let me know what they lend our money to and what they invest our money to. I'm with NatWest. I was with NatWest. I don't mind confiding in that. And I was a bit naughty, and I let them know that I was writing an article for The Guardian about it. So obviously they thought really carefully about what they were saying to me. And about 2 weeks later, they wrote back to me a long email that was full of very complex jargon and words about ring fencing, and it basically boiled down to, no, we cannot let you know who we're lending money to or who we're investing in. So what that means is you could be, for example, a Quaker and deeply committed to peace, and your money, without you knowing, could be going to the arms industry, or you could be someone who's completely against animal cruelty, and you could be funding the local puppy farm without you knowing. Or you could be someone who's completely committed to public education. You could be building the private wing of the private hospital down the road of the private school down the road, or the NHS. You could be funding private medicine. So if you're with one of the big high street banks, you just don't know where your money's going. So this is why a lot of the big environmental movements are encouraging us to use their phrase, put our money where our values are. So what I did then is I went to the Ethical Consumer magazine and I looked at the ethical banks, And they came up, the leading ethical bank is a bank at the time, or on the list, was a bank called Triodos Bank, which is based in Bristol. And I wrote to them and said, can you let me know who you lend your money to and who you invest your money in? And they said, yes, if you go to this website and look on this page, you'll see a complete list of who we invest money in. So it was it was black and white for me. I thought, right, I'll put my money somewhere where I know what they're doing with it. And it was a relatively easy switch. And it's interesting because I was speaking on a couple of radio programs and someone said to me, well, that doesn't sound very joyful, changing your bank account. And I said, actually, no, it really is, because for the first time in my life, I can say I've got a bank I'm proud of. And that is not an expression I ever expected to hear coming out of my mouth. So, and also, you know, it's voting with your feet and supporting what you believe in rather than what you don't believe in accidentally. Right. So that's my first suggestion. I'm hoping that various of you will pick up various of these and you'll go away and, you know, you'll do what works for you. So the second one I was obviously interested in was my home and the energy supply coming into my house. So I was already with a company called Good Energy, which is one of the leading sustainable energy companies. But I wanted to know more because I have a mixture of gas and electricity in my house. So I got in touch with the company that does the energy proficiency certificates that you would have to have if you were selling your house or if you were renting. The government has a scheme where they come in and they look at your house and they give your house a certain amount of marks depending on what energy you're using. So I looked at that and it was very confusing because much to my amazement, they rather liked my ancient old gas boiler, which I thought should have been, you know, thrown out with Noah's Ark. And they were encouraging me not necessarily to change to electric. And I was saying, but wait a minute, electric is going to be renewable. Why are you encouraging gas? Got myself in a big muddle, which is all expressed in the book. And as a result of that, I went to interview Juliet Davenport, who's the CEO of Good Energy. And I asked her every single question that I hope you would ask if you got an opportunity to pin the CEO of your energy company in a corner and quiz them about all the energy that's coming into your house and what are they using and why they're using it and are they using this and are they just greenwashing and how do we know? And about smart meters. If I could quote Juliet Davenport, smart meters aren't really all that smart. Anyway, so it was interesting. And I got, so I ended up very happy with Good Energy. And I arranged a little scheme for them, which I can pass on to you, that if you decide as a result of this or as a result of reading the book, that actually you're not with the most ethical energy company and you'd like to change, if you change to Good Energy, because I suddenly thought, wait a minute, if people read my book and hundreds of people move to Good Energy, normally I'd be getting a kickback on that. I'd be getting a little payment. I thought, I don't want a payment, of course, but maybe I can give the payment back to my readers in some way. So I got in touch with Good Energy and said, could you do something? And they got in touch with a company called Vintage Roots. And we've arranged, if you move over, as a result of the book, you get £100 worth of organic wine, get a voucher for £100 worth of organic wine. And as I jokingly say, in our commitment to the planet, I think drinking organic wine is very important. It's the least we can do. So that's it's the only book I know where you have £100, you have an opportunity to spend £10 on the book and get £100 back. So that's, but more seriously, I explore in the book the areas of energy and what we're all going to do about energy more fully in there. But certainly changing your energy supplier to a top sustainable energy supplier is another action you can take. Okay. Now, we've all heard a lot about plastic. I make a game of removing plastic from my home completely. And what happens as you do that is it's a really curious thing. Your life, your environment starts to feel more real. It starts to feel less plastic. I know it sounds crazy, but let me give you an obvious example. So, for example, our parents, your grandparents, they all had this wonderful thing called a fountain pen. Do you remember? And they loved it and they treasured it. Your father or your grandfather or your grandmother, they probably had one in the house, exactly, and they had it for most of their lives. You might even still have your father or your mother's beautiful fountain pen, and well, exactly. And so this is something, it's really interesting. It's where being an environmentalist and aesthetics begins to touch, because somehow we've all been, almost every house I go to, people have 32 plastic biros somewhere in the house. In every drawer, in every nook and cranny, there's yet another plastic biro. So on behalf of your parents and grandparents, I invite you to be better aesthetically. Buy yourself for Christmas, if you don't already have one, or for a birthday, one beautiful fountain pen and fill it from an ink pot. You know, nowadays they have little injectors. Here's my backup in case I ever lose that one. This is also metal. And inside, they don't have those squirty things like they used to have. They have a, you know, it's like an injection fill up. So this is a little bit of plastic here, but you turn it, you put it in the ink pot, and it fills up like that. Such a joy to write with. I have an italic nib put on mine because I've discovered if you have italic nibs, it makes your handwriting look better. But that's just one example. Now, another thing, I don't know if you've noticed, we've all become, I mean, washing clothes, is it not the most ridiculous nonsense that goes on out there? I mean, your grandmother and my grandmother had one soap box that looked like this. It was cardboard, and inside was soap flakes. And yet nowadays, there's 10 million kinds of these big plastic bottles, and you're encouraged to buy a plastic ball that goes in your washing machine with which you fill. And they usually sell them, because they're very clever, they call them eco balls. Because did you know the fossil fuel industry has a group of people, in fact, I should read this to you because it's so genuinely shocking. Plastic is not a byproduct of the fossil fuel industry, it's a product of the fossil fuel industry. So the fossil fuel industry is always trying to make things up that are plastic and then trying to sell them to us. There's people employed to do this. So listen to this. Oil companies have spent 180 billion pounds in the last 7 years finding new products that we need to buy. And then I list in the book, here are 10 of the items they've created and promoted, all of which have arrived in my feed on social media in an attempt to get me to hit the buy button. And then I list in the book, I'm just reading from the book here, some of the more ridiculous things, but you all know it. You all know those ridiculous things that you're told you absolutely need them. And then when they post them on social media, they post messages underneath going, I must have this, I must have this. They're completely ridiculous. My favorite number one, I'm just going to read you that one. And seriously, I saw this being sold on social media. A plastic pram for pushing a watermelon, which includes a chiller to keep your melon cool, £130. A special pram for a watermelon made of plastic. Oh, wait a moment, I can't resist reading you a few more. This is true, I promise you, under God, I saw this for sale. A plastic contraption for hard boiling eggs without the shell. You take the eggs out of their shells, you put them into an egg-shaped container, which you then place in boiling water. £14. I promise you, I'm not making this up. A seat with an attached step that fits over your toilet so that your toddler can climb up the one step that sits on the loo safely. Comes in pastel pink or pastel blue, so your child knows what sex he or she is. £26.58. You wonder, don't you, how did we manage without these things when we were children? How did we sit on a toilet? A doormat made of plastic, which is apparently superior to a normal doormat. However, unlike traditional doormats, will never biodegrade. £90.72. They take us for fools. They sell us these things and we buy them, or else they wouldn't sell them. A plastic dust daddy attachment for vacuum cleaner, which sucks up delicate objects like leaves and dust on books, as if a normal attachment wouldn't do that, right? £10.99. A plastic egg to hold your soap powder in your washing machine, marketed as an eco egg, although quite what's eco about an unnecessary plastic egg isn't clear, £9.82. And you buy a different one for your dryer, £9.99. A mascara shield. It's a piece of plastic that you put on your eye so that when you put your mascara on, you don't smudge it on your eyelid. An eyelash cleaner or an eyeglass cleaner on a plastic stick that cleans both sides of your glasses at the same time. Honestly, I've seen these things myself. So you don't have to use a cloth. You have a stick that does both sides at the same time. £8.34. A toothbrush of the future, I saw this, made entirely of thermoplastic. It says it's recyclable. $12 in the US. Oh, and then finally, you're going to want to rush out to buy one of these, an intimate shaping tool, a piece of plastic that you put between your legs to shave your hair into a heart shape, a downward arrow, or an exclamation mark. So I'm reading you these so you know that there's a market out there that is encouraging us all the time to buy plastic. So I encourage you to play the opposite game. Get rid of plastic altogether from your life, from your house. It's really, and as you do it, as I say, things become more real. Another of my favorite examples is I recently saw in a local charity shop a beautiful woven wicker basket. I think it had come from Ghana or somewhere, in all reds and yellows, and some woman had woven this. I mean, you can almost guarantee it was a woman. So beautiful. And I came home and I thought, yes, I'm going to store my laundry in that. I thought, right, now what do I do with the old plastic one? Because obviously you don't just want to bin it. So I took it to my local laundrette and I said, do you want a laundry basket? They're like, oh yes, please. They break all the time. So now I have a beautiful wicker basket. Oh, another example for washing, still more biodegradable, that I wanted to show you. Look at this. I don't know if any of you know about soap nuts. Soap nuts they grow on trees in the Himalayas. They're a completely biodegradable product. I'll show you. And I use these when I'm basically washing things that are already clean. You know what I mean? Like, you've had a friend to stay for one night. They've slept on the sheets in the bed one night. You know they bath every day. So you know your sheets don't really even need soap. Look, they're one of the wonders of the world. They're a completely natural product. They're called soap nuts. So, and they wash. I mean, some people do all their washing with them. And when you wash things with them, they go kind of soapy, but they're completely biodegradable. And so if things are a bit dirty, then I use old-fashioned soap flakes. But if things are not dirty, I love using soap nuts. They grow on trees in the Himalayas. Who knew? Right. So, so plastic. Yes, just make a game of it. Just don't buy it. Don't buy it ever again. Use things that are metal and wood, and find things in secondhand shops. You know, trade, swap. Be creative, but don't buy plastic anymore ever. Right. Now, this is one that actually, as members of various faith communities, you'll all be very good at, I'm sure. But I had a friend who's a climate scientist, and I was discussing the climate situation with her, and I said, what should we all do? And she said, become a little bit activist. And I love that phrase, a little bit activist, because it doesn't sound like you don't have to go out and get arrested if you don't want to. But on the other hand, it sounds very persevering, doesn't it? If I were a local council and I knew that I had a lot of people who were a little bit activist, I'd be slightly terrified. And the thing about that is you can all choose the activism that you most like. And if you want to be purely positive, you can be purely positive. So let me give you the last example that I did, my last little bit of activism is I spent an hour writing to Wandsworth Borough Council, just thanking every single person whose email I could get for introducing No Mow May, because I'm sure you know that the councils around the country are trying to finally do something about greater biodiversity. So they're introducing the idea that they don't have to put glyphosate and chemicals on everything, and they can actually just let the grass grow and then the wildflowers grow. And this is called No Mow May, and it's extending. And what my local council here, they introduced No Mow May for the first time this year. And I thought, there are always going to be some people that are going to write and complain that it's untidy. So unless those of us that love the wildflowers also write and say, thank you, this is wonderful, it looks beautiful. I mean, I really felt that I could breathe for the first time. Actually, the plants were allowed to grow, the wildflowers were allowed to grow. We had Battersea Park full of daisies and buttercups. Literally, for the first time, I've lived here 25 years. I've never seen daisies and buttercups growing in the park before. I mean, it doesn't seem much to ask. But so I just wrote and thanked every single person. And I mean, can you imagine being on the local council and actually getting a thank you letter? I mean, can you imagine how often that happens? I can tell you, not very often. So, and then of course, being a little bit activist, you can pick your cause, you can pick the way you work, you can pick what you do, but don't do nothing. You know, I mean, we're lobbying around here. We've been lobbying around here for a cycle rack. You wouldn't think it would be hard. But for some reason, Wandsworth Borough Council can't provide racks to put cycles in. I live in a place, there's 18 flats here. We desperately need a cycle rack. So we just keep on and on and on asking. So, and also we've got in Wandsworth, the air pollution levels are so high, they're actually illegal. So there's a little group of people, I haven't joined them yet, but on Wednesday afternoons, they sit outside Wandsworth Borough Council with banners that say, do not breathe here, toxic air. They go down with gas masks. It's all very humorous. You know, they're standing in the middle of the road with gas masks saying, this air is toxic. So all I'm saying is be a little bit activist. And because it's called the Joyful Environmentalist, I encourage you to do anything that has humor. Also, it communicates better to people if it's a little bit playful, if it's a little bit joyful. Anything that is humor or makes people laugh, they can go, okay, they've got a point, you know. So be positive in your activism and have fun with it. This is a more challenging one, but it's quite interesting to explore, right? Obviously, one of the main things that's ruining our planet, as we know, is cars. So I've got a little section about cars in the book. And what I do in there is I say, just if you own a car, just as a creative exercise with your partner or loved one or cat or friend or someone, just talk about, give creative consideration to what it would be like if you lived without a car. So, for example, some people say, well, I couldn't live without a car because I wouldn't be able to see my grandchildren or whatever. And I say, well, actually, if you really start thinking that through, if we didn't have cars, a lot of people would end up moving because they'd want to see their loved ones. And when you start to break it down, you realize how much cars have been the contributive factor in the breakdown of our communities. And just explore alternatives. So, for example, you might be interested to know, my daughter, for the first time last night, picked up a zip car. Now, I don't know if you know how these things, neither my daughter or I drive a car, but what they've done with car hire now is Zipcar, they do them like the bikes. So you have on your phone an app that tells you where your nearest Zipcar is. You go, you pick up your Zipcar, you drive it to wherever you want to go, you park it wherever you want, and you leave it there. There's none of this business that you used to have when you hire a car about it needing to be back by a certain time and all that. It's literally like, like you'd pick up a bike and drive it somewhere and put it in a rack. You don't even have to park it in a special Zipcar box. You literally just park it. And in a certain area, so I think Zipcar operates, so they have blue Zipcar things and green Zipcar things. So a green Zipcar thing you can drive anywhere in the country, but a blue Zipcar stays within a certain boundary. So say it stays within Wandsworth or somewhere. But you can. So anyway, so she picked up a car in Brixton. She drove to Putney. She parked the car. I think she said that cost less than an Uber. I think it was about £15 to do that. And then when we came home, we had some stuff with us, and we picked up a different Zipcar and we drove back. And she dropped me off, and then she drove back to Brixton. She parked the car outside her house, and she said, yes, but it won't be there in the morning because someone else will have picked it up and driven it around. So I'm just saying these more creative opportunities. And of course, if you're looking to save money, most people that have cars don't use them that often anymore, you know. So if you're looking to save money, look into Zipcar if you're looking to for creative alternatives to car ownership. So that was just last night. Right. Learn about the joys of rewilding. I'm sure I'm not going to teach my grandparents to suck eggs, because I'm sure many of you have been gardening for longer than I have. But what we used to call, you know, that sort of area of the garden that you leave for the insects, that turns out to be the most valuable area of our garden. Now, I've got in the book, I got in touch with the Royal Gardening, I don't remember who they were, but I got from one of the Royal Horticultural Society, that's it. The Royal Horticultural Society gave me a list of the plants, and I've also got a list of the trees. We've been gardening wrong, sorry. We've been gardening for aesthetics. We've been gardening from the Victorians, who decided that, you know, gardens have to be controlled and they have to be neat and they have to be a certain way. We all inherited that. So we've been gardening just to make gardens look pretty. What we need to do is we need to garden for the planet. We need to garden for the sake of the insects and the birds. If you get in touch with the RSPB and say, how can I look after birds? They will encourage you, A, to join the RSPB, which I'm not knocking, but sending them money isn't necessarily going to help the birds in your garden, or buy bird food, which again, I look at in the book. Does that not strike you as a little bit strange? I mean, how did the birds get on before we were here? So what I've got in the book is I've got a list of all the fruit bearing trees and the berry bearing trees that the birds feed on naturally. And I've managed to find a list that coordinates the birds with the berries. So if you plant, oh, I don't know if I can find a list without, I should have marked all this before the talk, but it's all in here. If you plant, oh yes, the merits of pyracantha. I say at the end, if you live in an area that's rough, get rid of your barbed wire, just plant pyracantha. The thorns are this long. No self-respecting burglar will go near you if you've got pyracantha. Why does anybody need barbed wire? So, yeah, so I've got a list in here of 10. Let me just read you one. Common holly. Missel thrushes love the berries, and you can save money at Christmas just by bringing in a branch or two into the house. One that's, if you plant barberry, which is a delicious shrub with amazing bright red berries, then in winter you'll have food for thrushes, fieldfares, and redwings. Oh, and I should read you about hawthorn because it's funny. All you literary types, which I'm sure is all of you, I really feel you ought to have common hawthorn in your garden, as hawthorn is one of the favourites of Proust. For Marcel, the sight of a hawthorn in flower was just so unbearably beautiful that he was sometimes forced to look away. Hawthorn also had, he says this, he couldn't look at it, it was just too beautiful. Hawthorn also has an amazing perfume, which Proust describes as having the bittersweet fragrance of almonds. Hawthorn grows slowly in glorious white bushes and can also grow up into a tree with wonderful gnarled trunks. As well as having all these wonders, the red berries in winter provide food for starlings, finches, crows, blue tits, thrushes, and waxwings. And it's cheap too. I bought 4 small hawthorn plants yesterday for £6.95. I hope you're excited, I've written here. I mean, really, joyfully looking after the planet by planting hawthorns may be something small, but if you're a hungry thrush in the snow, it could be life or death. So if you've got land, joyful environmentalism, this is where, you know, think about your garden in terms of obviously the pollinators, the insects, and the birds. A lot of the things that we've been encouraged to plant are absolutely no use to the pollinators. You know, all these plants that are, like, I went to the Thrive Garden in Battersea Park. There were these poppies that somehow mankind have developed. They've got so many leaves on them. There's nowhere for the bee to get in and reach the pollen. We've actually created flowers that the bees can't feed off. So think of those things. If you don't have a garden or any outside land, then find through your faith community someone who does have, because I'm sure, you know, there's an elderly person that lives near you that would be so happy if you went in and helped and said, you know, do you need a bit of help with your cutting all this, or can we help you with that, or, you know. So find somewhere. And obviously the benefits, the mental health benefits of being outdoors are well known. Right, I must crack on. 1:30. I hope I don't have to tell you about compost. Please never throw away your vegetable peelings. If you're doing that, shame on you. Your grandparents and your great grandparents wave their arms in amazement at you. Why would you do such a thing? Our earth desperately needs our potato peelings and our apple peelings and our cabbage and our odds and ends. So again, if you don't have any outside land, just have a little compost bin in the corner of your kitchen and find someone. If not, you know, just find someone that wants compost. If you find a neighbor who has a compost bin, they will all gladly receive your offerings, your wonderful magical offerings. Food. It's very important for your health and for the planet that we prioritize financially eating organic food. And whilst a lot of the things I talk about in my book encourage people to spend way less money, like clothes, I mean, I seriously recommend that you never buy another item of clothing for the rest of your life. I would be willing to bet every single person in this group, if you never bought another item of clothing for the rest of your life, you'd be fine. You don't need any more clothing, do you? How do we know that people don't need more clothes? Do we see people walking down the street without clothes? We do not. We don't need more clothes. We need less clothes. So, you know, and I'm sure some of you have discovered the joy of charity shop clothing, but even then. So a lot of the things I recommend are great money savers. But in the case of food, I do recommend spending a little bit more money on organic food. Now, organic food is difficult to find and slightly more expensive and a pain in the neck and comes in plastic. And so I recommend that you give serious consideration, if you're not already, in joining a company like Riverford, who are not paying me to say this, but a company like Riverford will produce for you every week on your doorstep, not in plastic, fruit and vegetables that can be completely seasonal, grown in the UK, obviously, will land on your doorstep and is organic and is fresh and is good for you. And if, like me, you've never eaten seasonally, again, this is something that your grandparents would be throwing up their arms in amazement. Seasonal eating introduces me to all kinds of things that I mean, literally, a Calabria arrived this morning. You know, those alien vegetables with the bits that come out the top. I'm looking at them thinking, I have no idea how to cook this creature. What am I going to do with this creature? I have to look it up online and find out how to cook it. But Riverford, the quality of their food, and by buying organic food, you're looking after the planet, because you know they're not putting chemicals on the land. And you're supporting organic farmers, you're supporting British organic farmers, and it's better for your health. And you'll also have, I don't know if you ever have food waste. I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you're all too wise for that. But again, if you're buying organic fruit and vegetables from Riverford, it's so good. There's no way you're going to waste anything. And then what is left over will go, of course, in your compost bin, and then that will all be organic too. So I do recommend you make your lives easier. Also, you very, very rarely have to go to a supermarket. I mean, once and every now and again to buy a bottle of olive oil. That's about it. I mean, you know, and wouldn't you be happy if I could wave a magic wand and you didn't have to walk around supermarkets anymore? I mean, you know, who wants to do that? Because it's all in plastic. And then I love it on Wednesday when my food arrives. Anyway, so I do recommend buying organic food and doing it through Riverford. It's just easy. Where am I up to? Yes. Obviously, I recommend eating less animals and less fish. I don't know if you've seen, if you haven't seen the documentary film that's out called My Octopus Teacher, just if you've got Netflix or anything like that, just get a big screen and watch My Octopus Teacher. It's the most extraordinary documentary made by a man about this friendship he forms with an octopus. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but it's the most beautiful, beautiful documentary. If you watch that film, you will never eat an octopus again, I promise you. They're such intelligent creatures, you wouldn't want to. Likewise, Seaspiracy. I mean, it's a hard watch, but it will change your attitude towards eating fish. And meat, I mean, if you do eat meat, I just encourage you to, eat as much plant-based food as you possibly can. If you are a plant-based eater yourself and you have a partner or a family that like to eat meat, then people always say to me, well, I'm vegetarian, but my partner wants to eat meat, what do I do? And I say, well, this is joyful environmentalism. So what you do is you seduce them by making the best plant-based vegan meals that you possibly can. Treat yourself to a couple. I mean, I've got a list in here of all these wonderful plant-based cookbooks, and they are just outstanding. And again, with Riverford, sorry, I'm not plugging Riverford. Really, they should be paying me for this talk. They send every week, I treat myself to one box that comes with a recipe with all the food that I need for that particular thing in the box. And it's all plant-based. And so every week I'm cooking something I've never cooked before. And I don't even have to think about it. But basically, the way to put your focus if you're trying to eat less meat is not even thinking about eating less meat, but thinking of broadening your range of beautiful plant-based meals that you know and that you can cook and that you can entertain. I'm cooking for 5 people tonight. They'll all be given the most delicious plant-based meal they've ever had. They won't go away feeling hungry. Where am I up to? Yes, if you buy wine, again, find an organic wine supplier. I recommend, there's a company called Vintage Roots, but there's another company, I must find it. I must find their name. I've got some friends in Bristol that have a wine company, and they import their wine from Portugal by ship. I mean, can you imagine? Because they're trying to be environmentally friendly and environmentally carbon neutral. I'm going to look them up and show you this picture of this ship because it's just so beautiful. Oops. I mean, I have an organic wine company that I buy my wine from, but they don't import wine by ship. I mean, now I've seen, look at this. Look at this. I mean, this is a ship bringing organic wine from Portugal. I mean, could you imagine anything so beautiful? No pollution in the sea at all, just coming in by, I mean, wouldn't that glass of wine just taste better? I mean, the joy of drinking a glass of wine that's come in organically by ship from Portugal. So that company, if you want to have wind-based wine, Xisto wines. Don't know how you even pronounce that. Xisto wines, Xisto wines. Or the other one that I say that come in through, if you change to Good Energy, you want your £100 voucher to get your £100 worth of free organic wine. That's Vintage Roots. And they basically, because I talk about them a lot, they basically did send me a box of free organic wine for me to sample it all. Obviously, It's one of the trials of my job. I just had to drink a lot of organic wine to check that I could recommend it to you, which I'm happy to say that I can. They also do organic, you know, champagne, organic, all those things. Okay. What time am I supposed to be finishing? 2 o'clock or now? 2 o'clock. Okay. I think I'm almost done. Oh, yes. There's a wonderful man in America who is teaching people in very underprivileged areas to grow food, because he says more people are killed by driving into McDonald's than that are shot by the drive-by. And so he's been teaching growing your own money, growing your own food is like printing your own money. So if you don't already grow anything, I just encourage you, listen, just play with it. Just play. You don't have to have a garden. You don't have to be an expert. Just even in a window box, even in a hanging basket. So I have to confess to you, I've been a frightful snob about hanging baskets all my life. I've always seen hanging baskets as a little bit suburban, you know, a little bit kind of twee and parochial. I've never really liked hanging baskets. And I thought this year, what kind of ridiculous inverted snobbery is this, Isabel? A hanging basket is a wonder of nature that prevents the slugs and snails being able to reach whatever you put in the hanging basket. So, and this year I've got 3 hanging baskets of strawberries. I'm going to have strawberries from my hanging baskets this year. So grow something that you can eat for the pure pleasure of doing so, because we're talking about joyful environmentalism, you know, and if the world's going to go down, if everything is going to go down, at least you'll be eating homegrown organic strawberries, you know, at the same time. Okay, and then finally I'll end with this one. Okay, so take whatever gives you most joy in life, your major passions, the things that make you excited to get up in the morning, and work out how you can combine those with saving the planet. So take volunteering, for example. A lot of the opportunities are closed at the moment due to COVID, but I've got a section here where I go to Scotland and I go to the Highlands and I spend a week doing tree planting. And it's in the hills of Scotland all day, every day we were planting trees. It was just mind blowing. As I say to them, we feel very proud of ourselves in London if we plant 1 tree. You know, we planted maybe 1,000 trees. So replanting the Caledonian forest, it was utterly beautiful. So if you've got young people who are complaining that they don't know what to do, you know, these environmental volunteering opportunities are wonderful. And likewise, any other passions that you have, find ways to combine those with saving the planet. So you're enriching your own life and you're enriching the planet at the same time. Okay. We've got a little bit of time for questions, if I'm finishing at 2. Should we take some questions, John? Hello, John. Come in, John.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. I put a question for you in the chat, Isabel.
I wasn't able to see that.
Well, basically, we're planting trees and we need... we're getting nowhere with some of the councils, and I just wondered if you had a contact in Wandsworth, because we want to put one in Battersea Park.
Yes, I do have a contact for you that I can let you have earlier on.
Brilliant.
I know that the head of biodiversity in Wandsworth Council. Yes, I can let you have
that'd be great.
That.
Thanks.
On the question of trees, obviously I don't know what boroughs you're all in, but a recent phenomenon has happened, which is that you'll notice that around every young tree, you'll see a green plastic bag. These are planting bags. But have you ever seen a planting bag with water in? No, you haven't. Because what happens is they put these plastic bags around the trees, and then on the front of these bags, there's a little kind of slit. And they put a piece of paper that goes over the slit that explains how the bag works. but nobody ever lifts the piece of paper to discover the slit underneath, and the slit underneath is where the water goes into the bag. So a friend and I were tree wood. I swear, we spent an entire 10 minutes staring at this bag, trying to work out how it works. It says water like a pro, and it's got a big gap in the middle. So basically, what's happened all around the country is the council, because they've all got these environmental targets, they're planting new trees all over the country. They take down these 200-year-old trees for some development by Taylor Wimpey, and then they plant a couple of saplings. But guess what they don't do? They don't water them. Nobody waters them. So keep an eye open for the trees near you, the new young trees. Look for these green bags. If you see the little plastic flip on the front, peel the plastic flip off, because that reveals the gap where the water goes in. And if there's young trees near you, I know it sounds ridiculous, but you really need to take out a watering can and fill those green bags, because that's what they're there for. If you see a new young tree that's been planted, as I often do, I mean, yesterday I was walking to someone in Putney, and there was a tree there with the green bag, and the man was just coming out, and I said, excuse me, can I just speak to you for a minute? I said, look, you've got this new young tree planted outside your house. I said, you probably think the council is going to water it. Let me disillusion you. They're very unlikely to water it. If you want this tree outside your house to live, this is the green bag. This is how it works. This is where the water goes in. The man was fantastically grateful to me and really sweet, because obviously he doesn't want the new young tree that's been planted outside his house to die. But so keep an eye open for these new trees and water them, and tell people that, you know, if you're feeling courageous, if you know someone that lives next to where the tree is being planted, just be a little bit activist and say, excuse me, do you mind if I have a word with you about this new tree? Because the council, they just don't have the staff, they don't have the money, they don't have the watering bans. I mean, they do a little bit of water, but really minimally. And if you start to look, you'll soon notice the dead trees all over the borough, sadly. Sorry, next question. That's my rant about trees. Hello.
Sheila.
Yes,
Sheila.
Thank you, Isabel. I mean, there've been 1,000, 2,000 brilliant ideas, and yes, some I'm doing, some I will intend to do. But needless to say, I'm going to pick up on one thing that I disagree with.
Oh, right, go ahead.
I think in this country, we have a huge problem with alcohol and alcoholism.
Oh, we do, yes.
I don't think it's ethical to be promoting alcohol. Personally, because I get from Ecotricity and if, you know, sign up for this and get how much, you know, off your next wine or free wine thing. I don't think it's ethical.
You're
and I think
right,
just
Sheila.
statistically looking at this group, there will be 1 or 2 alcoholics in this group. So I think some, you know, we need to be thinking about things like that.
I do say in the book, please drink responsibly. I do say that in the book. I'm afraid I made an assumption looking at all your wise faces and, you know, and the fact that you're all at least as old as I am, that I made an assumption about a high level of personal responsibility in this particular group, that you're right, might not be.
But personal responsibility has got nothing to do with an illness like alcoholism.
You're right. Yeah. And I should have said, please drink responsibly. You're quite correct. I should have said that. So please don't drink wine if you have any problem with alcohol. Take one of the other suggestions. Do gardening instead. We want to all look after ourselves.
Isabel, have you heard of the Religious Education and Environment Program?
I'm sorry, I can't hear who's talking.
In the chat, Religious Education and Environment Program.
Alan, I haven't, Alan. I haven't.
Well, I suggest you contact them because it's been going for some years. I did a fundraising for them, and it affects all the schools.
Yes.
And putting environment into religious education, but a wider, they have it all good articles by the leading people, like
Okay.
Forrest, etc.
I'll get in touch with them. Thank you, Alan.
The other thing I really is to encourage volunteering. We have a massive suicide, uneducation problem amongst the youngsters. And the more we get them out doing the kind of environment program you're saying,
Yes.
the more important it's going to be to deal with this.
Yes.
A massive problem, you see.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I would encourage, I mean, seriously, is the nice thing about this particular book is it's very readable. It's been read by lots of people who, you don't have to be a reader. You don't have to have read Proust. You know, it's in little tiny sections. And my daughter's boyfriend, who comes from a very, very underprivileged background, I'm so proud because he told me it's the first book he's ever finished. And there's a lot of, I mean, among young people, there is a passion. There is a passion to look after the planet, and there is a passion to volunteer. And so, yes, sometimes getting the tools in the right hands is important. I mean, I was very impressed when I got involved. I got involved in one chat for this book. You know, in the activist chapter, I went out and I was looking at the Fridays for Future movement that happens outside the Houses of Parliament on Fridays, or did before lockdown. And the young people are very much leading the adults on this. You know, that they're very, very well educated and motivated and angry with us as the older generation for what we've done to the planet. But sorry, I'm talking. Sorry, Alan.
So Anthony Selden is working on the national curriculum with the Times, and it's worth contacting him and getting your views across on the environment for the new curriculum.
Anthony Selden is doing that. I met him years ago. He's a marvelous man.
Well, he was headmaster of Wellington and Buckinghamshire.
Yeah. One of the only headmasters that's ever. I met him at a conference on happiness. He's one of the only leading educators in the country that's ever had an interest in putting happiness on the curriculum.
Yeah, well,
imagine that.
If you could contact him, he would be very interested.
Okay, thank you very much, Alan. I will do. You don't have his email, do you?
I don't know that I can give it to you, but
I'm sure I can find it.
I'll think about it. If you let John have your email, I'll be in contact.
I met him years ago. I don't know if he'll remember. We had a couple of exchanges.
I'll get it for you. I can give it to you, but I'll have to ask him first.
Okay. Thank you, Alan, very much. Julie, you're waving your finger in the air.
Do you need to unmute, Julie?
Julie, I can't hear you.
Unmute. Yeah, I'd like to have a word, not actually in defence of supermarkets, but in favour of shopping for organic food in supermarkets. Do make sure that you buy organic food from a supermarket, because I would argue that they have more power and clout for changing the way we produce foods than possibly Riverford and Abel Cole do, because they have greater buying power. Now, supermarkets are not in the business of the environment and ethics at all. They're in a money-making business. And you as a consumer are in control of what they buy. If you buy it, they will stock it.
Yes.
I mean, look no further than you very, very seldom see non-free range eggs nowadays, do you? Because people are concerned about welfare of hens. And honestly, my local supermarket now has a whole plant-based food section.
Yes.
In my local Asda, and that is because there is a demand for it. So make sure you if you shop in the supermarket, because they've got buying power in greater than Abel Cole and Riverford.
You're right, Julie. There's a really interesting discussion that I have on this subject with Guy Watson. Because I go down and I interview him in the book, rather like I do Juliet Davenport. So there's a whole discussion. And yes, of course, it's really important. The problem is, as you say, that supermarkets are there for profit.
Yeah.
And what you do when you don't shop through supermarkets, you buy your organic fruit and veg direct from, is you're paying the farmer. So we're supporting British farmers, and we're supporting the farmers, you know, to use the land correctly. Whereas so much of it in supermarkets is all to do with supermarket profit.
I know.
I'm not imagining for a moment that everyone here that I'm talking to is instantly going to never go to supermarkets again and going to join Riverford. But I'm just saying, well, it's a really interesting discussion I have with it. And also it's very funny because he's very grumpy. The guy that runs Riverford, Guy Watson, he's very grumpy. And also I ask him the question that people have been asking for 20 years. I say, but isn't it much more expensive? And he goes off like a firework. That's very funny. He's very rude, but it makes for a very lively. Yeah, but he's very funny on false claims. You know, like when you eat at a restaurant and he says it claims to be, you know, lesser spotted trout hand caught on one line 5 miles from the restaurant. He said, you know, just say, oh yes, which river? You know, because there's so much nonsense being, you know, and a lot of the things, you know, in supermarkets, again, you know, Happy Eggs fresh from, you know, Honeyford.
Yes, are they?
Say to them, where is this Honeyford farm? I'd really like to visit it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I like about knowing that my stuff comes from Riverford, is they're hugely conscientious.
Yeah.
I can say,
you know, for sure,
where can this grow? They can give me the name of the man and the field and the place and the street. And I you know, I've cut out all the bollocks in the middle, excuse me. And so for me, that works really well. But obviously, yes, as supermarket, but people have been asking for less plastic round the crap in supermarkets for 100 years. But, you know, they always wrap the organic stuff in plastic, and the non-organic stuff, have you noticed, it is plastic free. And the reason they do that is because it keeps it fresh for longer. I went out one year and went around all my local supermarkets in the area to research this. And I went out to buy food that was both organic and not in plastic. And I did a fantastic series of pictures on Instagram of empty supermarket baskets. Here's what I can get organic and plastic free from Tesco's. Here's what I can get organic and plastic free from Sainsbury's. There were like 8 empty, and then occasionally spring onions. I could get spring onions, organic spring onions, not wrapped in plastic. That was it. So
there is a solution to this plastic. I say every single piece of a plastic bag, and every supermarket in Kingston has a plastic bag recycling bin. And I take all my plastic bags, you know, my various fish, and I recycle them. I don't know. And well, all my I'm quite lucky in Kingston on Thames. We have plastic recycling, you know, every other week, and you can actually take large items of plastic straight to the dump, and it's recycled.
I know, Julie, but we're never.
It's hard work. I know it's hard work, but you can do it. This is a solution. It's better not to produce it in the first place, but we've got to deal with the situation as it is now.
I would encourage you to get a cotton tote bag, because we're never quite, and not deal with the plastic at all. Just become plastic free as best you can, because we're never 100% certain, are we, where that plastic goes.
I agree.
So many stories about all our recycling ending up on an island in Turkey or whatever.
It's terrible.
It's just very questionable. So I think and also it's more fun for me it's more enjoyable for me to try and avoid the plastic altogether.
Yeah, I agree.
So and then, you know, plastic free, waste free, live simply, you know, like our parents and grandparents did, live more simply. Oh, I forgot to do the clothes mending thing. I thought this would amuse you entirely. Look, this whole thing about clothes and not buying clothes and mending. You know, there's this great craze for visible mending. I have to show you, look, my first efforts at darning. I'm sure that's highly entertaining for some of you. The idea of darning not being visible, we've changed it now. Now we show off the darning. So this is my socks. They were really nice socks, and they got full of holes. Yes.
The jumper that I'm wearing has gone through the elbow. I put a little patch on it.
I've got one too, Julie. We're on the same page. My friend made this for me. I was so excited. Look, I know it's
I've
ridiculous.
just done that. Yeah,
Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it
I've
wonderful?
just done that. Can you, before you go, can you tell me, is there any fish that I could eat that is sustainable?
As a plant-based eater for the last 30 years, no, I'm afraid I'm the wrong person.
You don't know, because I saw the film you were speaking about, and about 2 months ago, and I haven't eaten a fish since. I've been vegetarian for 50 years.
But Calabria are in season, and they're fantastic. And the seasonal strawberries, and there's so much that we can eat. I wish sadly I can't move my. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I was going to show you the organic fruit and veg that's arrived this week is so glorious. I don't miss anything. I don't feel I'm suffering, honestly. I wish I could.
You have to be quite a good cook, don't you?
No,
you have to enjoy.
No, not at all. I'm not. I'm a lousy cook. No, I'm a lousy cook. I'm a lousy cook. I've never been a natural cook.
No, I'm not either.
But sometimes, you can just cook things up. I've got a friend at the moment who's heavily depressed and is unable to really cook for herself at all. And I'm saying it really doesn't matter. Just eat the food as it comes. Peel a carrot, eat the carrot.
The carrot.
You don't have to cook the carrot. Anyway, we're over time, aren't we? Look, I'm losing people. They're disappearing from the room.
Can I
anyway?
Can I check what the name of the film was about the sea? What was the name of the film?
There are two I mentioned. My Octopus Teacher is absolutely beautiful. And Seaspiracy. They're both available on Netflix.
Seaspiracy, okay.
Seaspiracy is about the terrible situation that we face in the world with the oceans and the damage we're doing to the oceans.
Thanks.
That one's...
Sorry.
Okay.
Radio 4 had a very good series 1 week on octopus's intelligence. I can't remember what it was called. It was last month, probably.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Have you watched My Octopus Teacher, Alison?
Who's that?
It's Isabel saying, have you watched My Octopus Teacher?
Documentary. No, I'm not on Netflix, no.
Oh, yes. I don't know. You might be able to find it some other way, but it's beautiful. Or if you're visiting someone that's got Netflix, just sit down and watch that. It's so beautiful.
Worth it.
Thanks for the idea.
Are we out of time?
Yeah, thank you so much, Isabel. That was absolutely fascinating. And thanks everybody for coming. It was a really, really interesting talk. So thank you so much for giving Isabel a clap.
I hope I've said something useful for each of you.
You have.
And I recommend this also as a gift for cheering people up because it's positive and funny. Please support your local independent bookshop. And if you read it and enjoy it, let me know. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Get on here. Thank you.